for them.
And probably their last really important one as well, because this one could have still some very dire implications on the greater standings as a whole, but going into Control Center, standard 3-3 goats from Global Esports. Talon Esports, however, a Pudo on the main.
Yeah, Global Esports should just see this relatively quickly. Don't want to get too rolled over by it, but nice isolation. Forward onto Satchok, who's now frozen up. He is really struggling to stay alive in here, and they haven't quite got the same damage down onto Muse, but Global Esports are going to be able to survive that one.
And just getting out of the way of the second wall as well, you can see that Satchok didn't go forward, he went backwards, just manages to avoid isolation, and staying on top, still manages to stay with the team.
Really, isolation anywhere. Little Rag's frozen up. He's super low. It feels like eventually something is going to break here on the side of Global Esports. And Talon also have the, they have possession of the space of the point, if not the actual control itself. But Shatter out from Muse, secures Satchok. Despite some ultimates out on the side of Global Esports, they are losing the members here. They are poised to lose this fight. That does mean Talon should be able to complete this cap at long last.
You see as well, Satchok's been beaten and bruised this entire engagement. Meanwhile, Muse has had basically nothing really too heavy thrown his way. So he gets the first ultimate of the game, throws the Earthshatter down, and then suddenly Global Esports are at loss with their main tank, who now changes onto the Winston instead. Xeon Flux on the Mercy. Really big compositional change for the side of Global Esports.
Xeon Flux does a double swap there, so he's back on the Zenyatta. He just lose a bit of ult charge for that, unfortunately.
We're in a bit of a space where there is going to be some spawn camp happening. I think Satchok getting out on the side does mean he can start get a bit of a back cap, which is going to draw the rest of Talon Esports and allow Global Esports to leave that choke.
They do just need to make sure that Satchok doesn't spend too much time alone, or he's risking going down. Yeah, brilliant wall, plus the Transcendence means they'll be well safe through that. Sound Barrier forced the commit here because you see Xenofly on the top side getting a bit low as it is, and that's to say nothing of these other members. Xenofly is now down. Satchok goes sky high to just prolong his life a bit longer, but I don't know if he'll survive it very long now that he's landed down. And again, Talon able to win that fight. Did have to blow through a few more ultimates that time around, though.
They got a lot of progress here, nearly 60%, and two very clean fights where they haven't really lost members. And now we're back at spawn again, and you see now Global Esports. This is probably for real. This is a much bigger change than before. The other four members here, double support change. Sombra now on the field, Forrest out on the field as well. They certainly need to do something because they are very far behind.
It's interesting. They go, well, look, we're not giving up really any ultimates here. We might as well. We feel this composition is going to work better for us. So let's see if it does pay off.
And it's going to allow them, once again, to importantly leave the spawn so you don't get trapped there with the May walls. In fact, with this kind of composition, hardly anyone should be trapped by the wall.
Satchok goes super low. He's just barely going to be able to get topped off. This Global Esports, this is very volatile. Oh, man, I was going to say, they're just one or two shots away from losing too critical a member. That is unfortunately what happens as Xeon Flux and Satchok got picked off early. Far away from where Azure could really res either of them. Talon to steer through to a 100-0 shutout on Control Center.
And Global Esports just kind of perpetually in catch-up there, where they lose that first fight. Earthshatter comes up really quickly for the side of Talon Esports, and Global Esports kind of figuring out how do they escape the scenario, because where May really shines is when you have a team that's winning and May's able to just control that spawn location with the ice wall. Global Esports trying so many different ways to get around it, eventually changing up basically their entire team, but so much progress has been given away to Talon Esports that eventually Global Esports find themselves in overtime and still not a fight win yet.
Now just coming out the gates on a 3-3, Talon. They do want to put a Pudo on the Sombra. This is something we see them run very, very often. Would expect Global Esports should be a little bit more ready to deal with this.
And Pudo really is the Swiss Army knife here for Talon as well. Whatever you need him on, he's going to be able to play it. Look at that early damage onto in, chunked down to 22.
It's going to be just fine though, topped up for the time being, but there was still a window there where Global Esports took possession of a lot of ground. So Talon is still just kind of reeling from that.
Damage.
Done on a Pudo, and Bashful ends up getting picked off. Now they put the pressure on further still. CQB out really hurts their ability to retreat here. Talon may end up taking a dive here. Look at these tanks isolated.
And this is where, because Talon Esports had to throw some extra healing in his way, they didn't take as much ground. Global Esports, they spot that, they push forward, they take some extra, they put in a lot of extra damage against Talon Esports, who didn't have the extra healing to expend there. They already used the healing pack from Bashful, and suddenly they just can't keep up.
Good hack on the Satchok, but it's not when they're able to take much advantage of it. Pudo still just slowly charging up the EMP, looking for some kind of hack around the side. Nice bump onto Apudo, just to keep him at bay.
And this could have been the X factor for Talon as well if they had a little bit more EMP charge, but still can't really afford to go in. Bashful's got to be careful.
Yikes, hack on Xenofly has actually allowed a lot of extra damage to come through. Now here's Shadows coming out either side. Little Rax on his back, Transcendence is in, Bashful still goes down. There's the EMP at last out from Apudo, only gets a couple of members, and Xeon Flux did have a Transcendence, so Global Esports all right after that one.
Grabs.
It's 1 for 1 so far in terms of kills. There's an Eat on Gagora's grab, and the kills start to come through from Global Esports, who are able to soundly land their grab. Brilliantly played from Global Esports, just getting slightly better trades, slightly more mileage out of each ultimate.
And this is where they get their cake and they get to eat it as well. In fact, they get to eat the Graviton Surge, pull their own one in. Talon Esports had already used the Transcendent, CQB doesn't use the sound barrier, and then suddenly it's all over. At that sort of point, with your grab in, probably not even worth using the sound barrier, just save it for the next engagement. The problem here does become, though, Talon Esports, they need a proper engagement because they are getting to that point. 75% is your super low, though, maybe opportunity.
Thing is, Global Esports still have some of the ultimates to cycle through here. Muse is nearly at a shadow. Apudo still a ways from an EMP, but man, that clock is ticking.
And this is very similar to what we saw in Control Center, except the other way around. Talon on the receiving end. Let's see what he can do with the Shatter.
Nice stun on Satchel.
4 members.
Shatter, it's decent, but where's the follow-up? There's one, but it's traded. There's 2 now. No counter trade on that second death, and a nice EMP to deal with that sound barrier. That's the turnaround that Talon were looking for.
I guess you see them feeling the water as well, checking the temperature. Shatter comes down into 4 members, they get a kill, sound barrier comes through, EMP is then obviously going to get a ton of value, so they throw that one in, and Talon Esports finally send Global Esports back to their base. The problem here is so many ultimates coming on for Global Esports, 1 fight territory as well. They just need this, and they will take Gardens.
Because that EMP was quite late in the fight, Apudo is a long way away from his next one as well, so does get a fair bit of damage in the rotation. He's got a bit more progress towards that ultimate.
And Hack is not going to be super useful here. Xenofly doesn't really care too much, and Talon, they need a much better hack. So many ults.
Oh, it's a hack on Satchok, and they want to press in. There we go, though. Here's the response. Grab comes out. Transcendence from in. Self-destruct layered in. Looking to get something. Doesn't get anything just yet. So now Global Esports having committed a lot of those ultimates. In fact, none left now as the rally comes to its close. And that's 1 apiece right now. Or Xenofly's mech, if you count that, but Muse goes down to EMP.
6 man.
On all 6, and it does start to turn things around. There's still just enough gas left in the tank here for Talon. The damage output from Gogora is going to help them secure a chunk more kills. And they'll suddenly, Xenofly knows better than to get back in that mech. Global Esports have to take a reset.
And that just goes so well for Talon Esports there as well. Everyone stays alive, basically. Not nearly enough members went down. Their Global Esports threw in every single ultimate that they had. And coming out of all the fireworks, when the dust starts to settle, Apudo has an EMP, Global Esports have nothing, and it's a 6-man connection that gives Gogora a triple kill.
That's the thing, when you consider who died, you would rather keep that Zarya. That damage can really be a difference maker when the Reinhardts are off the table, which they were for Talon as well as they were for Global Esports. So now, effectively final fight here. Just looking for something early on. That's 1 onto Bashful. Talon looking for a response. They get 1 back. We'll get more potentially onto Satchok and Lil Rax here. And it is all falling the way of Talon. Not quite a shutout this time around. Instead, we go the 99 to 99. But it will, once again, fall the way of Talon to secure Lijiang Tower.
Oh, that was so tight towards the end there as well. As you're just barely getting hacked out means he can't use the sound barrier. Maybe if he had the sound barrier, he could use it. That would have been a very different fight, but the margins are just going to be that close.
I mean, that was really incredible. I think as well, the credit you've got to give Talon is once they had control of a point, it became a shutout from that point onward. On control point, or control center rather, they had it from the start, it's 100 to 0. On Gardens, they didn't get it until that 99%, but they never let it go after that.
And I think it's the case of some very long engagements there from Talon that did go their way, especially the one where Global Esports comes in with 5 ultimates. You expect them to realistically be able to just overpower the side of Talon, who just can't really match it, but because they all stay alive, or most of them stay alive, the most important members, Gogora was there, Apudo was there, EMP was charged up, and then Gogora cleans up so many members as well. That was such a big engagement that the snowball just rolling in the favor of Talon from then onwards.
And I did also mention as well, just before that penultimate fight there, Apudo had used his EMP very late in the fight prior, hadn't quite got the charge up yet, was only about 30% when the fight broke out. That EMP that he charged up ended up being the difference maker in that very fight. Got it on all 6 members. There was still enough damage between him and Gogora to get kills. So you've got to look at little things like that and say, charging it up in the nick of time there was an absolute difference maker. And again, Apudo being kind of like a Swiss Army DPS, powerful on that, powerful on the main. We've seen him run the Zarya when need be. This guy's a brilliant fit on this team.
And I think this could have easily gone to that 3rd round as well, but it's not going to be the case, at least not yet. Kings Road coming up next should be a very close map once again for both these teams, and especially for Global Esports, because you can sort of feel how tight that Gardens was. And I think Global Esports know in their minds that that could have very much been their map. Lijiang, if it went to, you know, the 3rd and final night market, who knows what would have happened there. I think the confidence is definitely not shattered yet. I think Talon can be very happy with the opening map win, but Global Esports are not going to be shaken.
I think the thing to say, though, here is inevitably Global Esports are the ones that have to answer here. Talon are looking relatively comfortable, compositionally speaking. They can just lean into playing 3-3 with a Sombra. It's worked so far. Doesn't mean it's always going to work, but the point is that it is on Global Esports to answer.
And I think Global Esports don't need to do too many fancy things. They have a very good 3-3. In fact, they probably have one of the best 3-3s in this entire tournament, Easily. One of the most reliable ones. Lil Rax is one of the best Zaryas as well. Currently being matched quite well by Gogora on the other side, but it's really coming down to, for the Talon end of things, what are they going to pull up? Because they are the team that are more willing to kind of flex out. They kind of know Global Esports are much more comfortable playing the 3-3. And I think if we do go into a lot more 3-3 mirrors, Global Esports might be able to edge Talon out.
The thing is, Talon might not need to play into that, though, because you also look at the DPS. Talon sat on that side of the fence here. Global Esports, they do have some strong DPS players in their own right, but certainly Talon, members like Apudo, very much a known quantity.
But I think Kings Row is going to be the kind of map where you are going to lean more into the 3-3, which
certainly
will probably help out Global Esports, at least for the B and C points of the map, which
You'd like to think so.
Most of the game, or most of the map after, well, it's all of the map after most of the map in general.
Most of Overwatch is Kings Row point B and C. I definitely hold that to be true. That feels right.
Going to a custom game and it's just a Kings Row 24/7 server run.
But not point A.
I don't think you can do that.
That'd be nuts if you could, though, right? Well, there you have it. Talon just looking to lean into those DPSs. Muse will probably just be scouting, maybe looking for an entry frag, but they do want the Sombra.
And this is going to be the identity of the two teams really clashing here. Talon have been a pretty big proponent of Sombra Goat so far in this tournament. Last week they didn't actually play as much as you'd expect, but Apudo is very happy to be back on. Very big success on Lijiang Tower, and very big hack to open up as well.
Yeah, it just forces Global to seed ground here. The Talon are going to... they're not actually going to take possession. They're going to use that space to make a rotation onto the high ground here.
And that's just going to give them that free space to work with. That's very important for a team like Talon because, I mean, if Global Esports are going to back out, Talon are going to walk forwards, and this is where now you do have to be careful timers on Talon. While they did take a long rotation, have to find that opening to actually go in.
They are okay for now, just kind of sitting back and firing off until they can get someone low enough to commit, or maybe Global Esports will do the same back to them and finish off Bashful. Now Muse thumbed out, gets dropped, and Talon end up waiting just a bit too long. This is rough as well. They were actually leading an ultimate charge, but with Global Esports picking up a couple of kills here, suddenly their members are going to be the ones taking the lead.
And look at that, timing actually ends up being perfect for Global Esports because they forced the recall, the translocate on Apudo. As that happens, Apudo's out of the fight. Talon walk in 6 versus 5, and none of their members got hacked in that engagement, and that's as good as you can get for that initial engagement.
Apudo nearly at an EMP. That's got to be a difference maker. This time the hack on Satchok does not come through, so Talon need to decide how they want to do this.
And nearly 2 minutes is gone, and Talon, because they took such a long rotation last time and kind of got nothing out of it, they're now struggling to find positioning in their second one, especially because double support ultimates available for Global Esports.
They do just muscle on the point because Global don't have those offensive ultimates just yet, but nearly there, and they feel they can answer anything Talon will throw at them, but they do actually need to go on the point. They're just giving a lot of progress. There's that EMP. There we go. Zeal Flux was just waiting for that one, but Satchok still died in that window, and because In popped his Transcendence. Global Esports couldn't actually use that time to get kills.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Agora's grab, though. Muse is low. They need to be careful. He's going to go down. Global Esports finally starting to fight back. Xenoflight will get demaxed because he was stunned, could not self-destruct to restore it. Remember, Talon do have the closer respawn here. It is pressure on Global to secure more kills. Shatter out from Sadshot. Xenoflight down, but they get a Pudo. They're still just trading effectively here, but Talon have started to have to push back, give some ground. Bashful might be in trouble here. They want to get back on the point. Oh, Global not on it. The Shatter does get blocked, but the cap goes through, and Sadshot now dead. Late in the fight, suddenly Talon storm forward.
And that's what you see when you have Talon Esports on that cap itself, really forcing objective pressure. It's going quite evenly, but Global Esports not finding opportunity to break back in and contest the cap itself. And now they find themselves at a bit of a loss. Late member deaths as well. Lots of Talon members chasing forward, seeing if they can pick up some extras. More ultimates being charged as well, notably the EMP available for the next engagement for a Pudo.
Now just keeping some space in front of them here. Talon had themselves a bit of a lead, had themselves a lot of free space on the payload. Again, it is on Global to answer.
You're starting to see now some of those support ultimates coming back online. EMP's big.
Yeah, really big. And this time it does connect onto Xeon Flux, so no Transcendence. Not that it saved him last time, mind you, but that should be a gong.
All members down. Can't really save much there. This is going to be a very clean B push. EMP is going to be absolutely fantastic, and it's been really good coverage from Pudo so far. You'd expect this to be pretty much a cap. Global Esports haven't quite regrouped very quickly.
Now Global Esports this time coming in with a lot more to bear. Oh, nice hack on Xeon Flux. Slows things down, especially with the stun on Sadshot. Xeon Flux finally able to come in with that Transcendence, but in is matched. No one dead to the self-destruct. That is a decent shatter. Remember, follow-up though. Little Rex is low, but they haven't quite got the kill, even with a Pudo sitting up crossfire, but an EMP already available for him. Xenoflight out of the mech as well. When is Azure going to commit this? They've got a nice shatter. They're actually going to hold on to the sound barrier. They've made it work with just the shatter from Sadshot. You'll gladly take that one home.
That was super risky though, because what you did see is Azure was one of the two members caught by the Earth Shatter, didn't go down, got reasonably low, and then he was instantly hacked out at 99% by a Pudo who knew the sound barrier was probably imminent. He ended up holding onto that sound barrier the entire time, and Global Esports won that fight. Notably though, Talon Esports also didn't use the EMP, so kind of both factors there. Both members and both teams still have weapons to use in that next fight.
And notably as well, that EMP can, of course, cancel out that sound barrier. So Azure needs to be very careful where he commits it in this next fight.
Well, it's going to come down to the ordering, right? Because likely Azure's going to wait for a Pudo to go first.
That's a really early commit from CQB, knowing that if Azure chooses to match, then a Pudo just comes in with an EMP, so he chooses not to match. And Global kind of pay the price for that in terms of losing the fight. It's a no right answer sort of situation.
I think at least, to be fair, if you did use it and get the EMP out, that kind of resets the EMP, which would probably help Global Esports in the defense, because Talon now get to continue walking through. The EMP is the more important ultimate, and the more important ultimate to actually bait out of Talon Esports.
Global Esports aren't quite up on some of these other ultimates just yet either, and even if they were, it still only brings things to a relatively even playing field. There's that EMP. It's only a sound barrier that can do anything about it, a shatter as well, but they survive all of that and can now commit a Transcendence. Suddenly the shoe's on the other foot, and Global start to push back. Enin has to respond with Transcendence, and now Talon holding on to a grab, looking for the ideal opportunity. Shatter into the shield, and a grab out either way, but Gagora's super low, still not dead. Azure's the first casualty, and then it all falls down from there.
Global Esports now don't have any more ultimates on that defensive end to play with, had to use both. Like you said, it was only the sound barrier, but it was enough for the time because Xeon Flux was actually shattered down. He was stunned through, so the sound barrier was able to save everyone. But unfortunately after that, the second grab coming up from Kagura, too strong.
Azure barely touches the payload to force overtime and immediately pays for it with his life. Self-destruct layered up, gets nothing. This is still just a 5 versus 6, and it's only slightly better with those trades. Here we go. Finally, they start to make some headway. Late in the game, EMP though, and it could be enough. There's still respawners coming out, but Little Rex is dead. Is there anyone else respawning in time for this last little stretch? They're barely keeping it alive, but they're not actually getting kills, and there's just enough left of Talon on the payload to complete the cap.
Quadruple kill coming through from N77 there as well, just as they rolled through to the finish line. Took a little bit of effort, especially around the B point, and I would even say the A point was reasonably slow as well, but 128 against the caliber team of Global Esports on that defense, this was a pretty decent offense, all things considered, by Talon Esports. And you start to think as well, because, you know, you're playing the sort of EMP sound barrier chicken between Azure and Apudo. I think that ended up costing Global Esports more than it cost Talon Esports, because Talon ended up winning that B push, they ended up capping through, and they ended up saving the EMP for a better fight, where Apudo ended up just cancelling out the sound barrier anyway. So for Global Esports, somewhat poorly handled, but hindsight's 2020.
Global Esports now, the defense. This is their opportunity to, sorry, on the offense, I should say. Words are hard. What I meant to say is this is their opportunity to set themselves up with a much bigger time bank. They are definitely going to need it.
Talon Esports also showing as well, even on the further points of Kings Row, they're not going to be deterred. Happy to play Sombra as much as they possibly can. I think Global Esports are at that point where if they lose to this more, I mean, obviously they're going to be up backs against the wall, 0-2 down in the series. Some big questions will need to come through for the further maps, but right now they still have opportunity to maybe get past Apudo, who is very much happy to continue playing this until it stops working.
Yeah, there we go. I was going to say, I don't think this will really be a Doomfist. I expect to see Brigitte, so...
You will not be playing a Doomfist against a Sombra.
I would be stunned.
It would be a very poor choice for Global Esports, who are going to be the team that is, you know, within this tournament with Jupiter, the two most GOATs purists, and they're going to try and charge in early.
Sort of works, but Xenofly takes a hack and suddenly the pressure comes back the other way. Good damage onto Apudo, just alleviates the pressure on Xenofly for long enough, but they're still just juggling between those two tanks there, keeping damage down on someone at all times. Global Esports have never quite topped off those health bars, and eventually
big hack.
It's actually Bubble Kitty who goes down. Now Satrok will fall, and this is where it starts to fall to bits for Global Esports.
Apudo played that situation so well as well. Didn't go down, gets the hack onto Azure as Global Esports are losing HP and members. They can't back out, they can't heal an AoE, and Apudo gets so much early damage. Because he got the initial hack onto Xenofly at the start, he got so much free damage, 55% I believe, before he's forced to translocate. Finishes off the rest of it, now has a full EMP by the second push.
And right over all 6 members as well. And they knew it was potentially coming. There's almost nothing you can do about it. You just got to sit back and watch the meteor collide.
They're just sitting on the perch as well, on the high ground, staring down at them like an assassin. Perfect
like
EMP.
Vulture.
And Talon Esports, like a Talon. Like the Talon of...
You get like the Talon of a vulture.
Of, I guess.
Or a hawk, any bird of prey, really.
Well, if Global Esports are already dead, then it certainly be a vulture. And the way things are going right now, Talon Esports definitely want to close that coffin.
Call it a hawk then. At any rate, yeah, that's a bit of a dodgy shatter to come out from Muse. And that could be a moment of weakness, but Satrok still gets drilled down in spite of the transcendence from Xeon Flux. So, again, Global Esports on the back foot here. Talon just barging in, looking to drill down Xenofly, able to get the isolation on him. Bubble Kitty's going to be next as well. So that's 3 for nothing from Talon.
And look at the uptime as well for Apudo. That was the one fight where he doesn't have the EMP. So far, every second fight, he's going to have one. This is now 2 out of 2. Less than 2 minutes remaining for Global Esports. They can't really survive too much more of this. Xeonflux now over to the Ana. The only maybe slight advantage they have because there's no Diva on the side of Talon Esports. But, I mean, if the EMP drops down and there's no Transcendence, which there isn't, could be a big problem.
Yeah, went back to that lofty perch, but unfortunately dropped down a bit too early. Bashful goes down for this one. Global Esports, 3-man hack was not enough with that sound barrier still available. Good bit of damage to come out back onto Global Esports, but they're still doing pretty all right in here. Talon are at a numbers deficit. Shatter doesn't really do much for them.
Only Xenofly went and got caught. That shot will have a Graviton Surge.
It's 2/3 already. Muse goes down as well, despite that sound barrier. Just a fraction of a hair too late. Gogora in with the grab, but they need the damage, and it's not quick enough. The cap comes through. It's the same thing that happened on Global Esports' defense. The cap came through while the fight was still ongoing, and that means Talon are going to suffer some big losses here.
But the big difference is Talon had opportunity to continue that defense. They weren't down and out. They still had the Graviton Surge. They used it. CQB was just teetering on and off the point. Gogora's trying to step forward, but there was just a slight second where both members were not there, and it went over to Global Esports. It's a big loss for Talon.
Global Esports holding on to a good number of ultimates from that as well. They've got a lot of time they need to make up. That A took a far sight longer than I think they were wanting.
I think this is the point now where Talon Esports once again needs to force a big reset. EMP nearly available again, but this one needs to be very good. Something that can be followed up upon.
Oh, the grab comes out, and they're struggling to follow up on it. The self-destruct landed nicely, though, is going to allow them to pick up 2. And a beautiful biotic grenade allows them to mow down the rest. It was on the slightly more expensive side, but it was still good for Global Esports. They get the payload underway still.
And Global Esports, by the way, need to be the constant aggressors here. They can't be on a defensive sort of platform because they don't have that second defensive ultimate. They got an offensive support ultimate in the nano boost that they need to be pushing forward with. And Talon Esports want to find that scenario where they can maybe really push for the sound barrier to come through. And if it does, EMP will cancel it. But even then, I mean, EMP is going to be a big tool no matter what.
Getting B off one fight was good news for Global Esports, though. It took Talon 2 goes there to get through 2 different stages of defense. So now Talon, if they want to slow this one down, have to find a good fight here.
You notice Azure hiding out on the side as well, just seeing if Apudo wants to be the one to pull the trigger first. Azure will be there to answer. He is going to have to be very wary of the positioning because as his team's pushing forward, he is further and further away.
He does also know that he can't be too preemptive about it. So if the pressure comes out somewhere else, there it is. And Azure, very quick to answer. Nice shatter out from Satchok as well. Allows them to get aggressive. In spite of that Transcendence, they've still lost Muse. Good trade back onto Azure, but that is one snooze, and Bashful is going to go down, sleeping on the job. Satchok charging in, takes some pain, but really it's just keeping these remaining members at bay, indeed drilling them down still. Payload now moving towards the terminus.
And this is where the staggered kills really hurt because Talon Esports want to rely on the respawn advantage as the cut gets closer and closer, but they need all 6 and Global Esports are continuing to push.
This grab is going to stop them up on the way to the cart, potentially. No, just going to wait. They want that cart a little bit closer. Want to use the grab to close out what should be the
off the map.
Oh, but Satchok goes down. And this isn't going to be the fight for
Another
Global
one off the
Esports. Talon. Very nicely done. Global Esports maybe looking for a tad too much value.
The thing is, they needed all their members there and they need the cart positioning as well, so you can't be too greedy. You don't want to be grabbing on high ground because you can't follow up on that easily. So they're going to be able to wait. They're going to take a bit of a retreat here. Luckily, because a decent amount of members actually went off the map, they're not going to give away too much, and with the Graviton still available.
Oh, interrupt on that from CQB. He has to put in the sound barrier a little bit later now. Wasn't quite the position he was looking for. Shatter to come out from Satchok. Looking for the follow-up. These members are low, though. Gagora does finally go down.
Off the map.
Little Rax and Satchok still so low, and finally Satchok goes down. Nice EMP timing, though. And that could be the death knell. Bubble Kitty gets picked. And again, when all is said and done, there's still a Pudo left here to dig in the heels, to fight back and never quite go down. Global Esports, second time around, still not going to get it.
And when you look at the C point as well, you really have to start looking at both the Lucio players and both the Brigida players as well, because most of those kills, I mean, the first like 3 or even 4 in a row, were all members pushed off the map. Environmental kills abound. And this is where you're looking at 1 minute 15 on the clock as well. Talon Esports really digging in their heels, and for Global Esports looking to charge in the next string of ultimates. No EMP in sight for Apudo though.
But there's still soon going to be a grab. Now there's a shatter as well against Bubble Kitty, but that is all for the time being. Xenofly, he is way separated from his team, and Bubble Kitty's still going to go down. So Global Esports just in complete disarray there, totally separated and paying the ultimate price for it.
That was going to be the only fight within the last couple now where you are going to catch Talon Esports without that EMP available. Apudo's been very steadily charging that one along, going to have that 100% well and truly ready this time around. Nearing that 30-second mark, Global Esports likely only have one more attempt.
Look at this. These are the ideal ultimates out from Talon. And on the 2 members that have been the most pivotal in most of these fights, grabs come out from Lil Rags, but it's Satchok. Lil Rags getting low. The biotic grenade isn't enough to turn it around because Talon are absolutely destroying Global Esports here. Despite the sound barrier, despite the ultimates thrown in, now Global Esports have nothing. They got 10 seconds on the clock, and Apudo's still got an EMP.
That was everything used as well. Muse is going to try and shatter around the corner. They're going to do everything they can to make sure no one can push the ball.
Oh, forcing him out of the ball. Means they will not be able to get onto the payload. Brilliant play there from Apudo. It was still going to be a tall order regardless from Global Esports, but Talon on the whole laying the groundwork second time in a row now. No matter how close it looked, they are very consistently coming out the better of these 2 teams.
Yeah, I mean, that second to last engagement as well, right before, you know, the last ditch effort to try and make it to the cart. that was the pivotal fight. That was the one that Global Esports needed to be able to push to the finish line, because after that, they've run out of time. And just so many engagements in a row where you just see that Talon Esports coming through time and time again, and this is just an example of all those different environmentals.
It did also feel like, as we got to this final little stretch where there was that fight, the Global Esports, where they couldn't quite commit to it then, they lost that fight, and it felt like after that they were in panic mode, they were in a bit of disarray, never quite seemed as collected and coordinated.
It's going to be a tough pill to swallow. You do have to consider as well, there is a world where, and you know, I'm the biggest proponent of this, but I think the transcendence from the Zenyatta would have helped out a lot more in those kind of scenarios. They needed to be the team on the front foot from playing the Ana. You even start seeing towards the end there, despite some very good biotic grenades, and that should be the big advantage from running the Ana as well as the sleep if you can land it. Yeah. That's not enough. It's not enough to actually get them those wins, and they need something to fight against Saputo, because he's been very annoying to deal with, and they only got a sound barrier to do so, and that's not quite the best tool you want.
And the thing is, if the Lucio is hiding as well to use that sound barrier after an EMP comes out, that's a Lucio that's not in his team using speed boost to allow for maneuverability. It's a Lucio that's not getting into the enemy team using that sound wave to displace members and maybe set up some kills. You actually lose a lot of utility as well. It's not just an alternative to Transcendence, because in my opinion, the opportunity cost of the Lucio hiding is a lot higher.
And I think they need to be able to get the value out of actually having the Ana, so that's hitting the biotic grenades often, which kind of was here or there. Some of them were very decent, some of them didn't quite hit the mark, and the other part of that is, again, just being on that front foot, being the aggressors, being the ones in initiative, where you've constantly had fight losses time and time and time again in a row. I mean, you see even towards the end there, Puto didn't even have to EMP, saved it for the final stretch and stopped anyone from touching that carpet. It is going to be, so far, quick enough, 2-0. Not going to see time back just yet, but we are going to take a bit of a break. When we come back, the conclusion of the series, who's going to take it out? Find out after this.